Hello, my name is Markham Smeltzer, and welcome to Investor Hill. This is episode 8. Today I've got Ken. Is it McElroy? McElroy? How do you like it when people mess up your name?
Oh, it's fine. McElroy.
You would think that you'd have the A in there, but then you've got all
I
the,
know.
the
It's
old
kind of
roots.
weird.
Yeah. Have you ever felt that when you're on podcasts or other people's podcasts, that people just go on way too long at the beginning? I'm like, oh yeah, great to be here. Good, great. Yeah,
I'm always respectful.
good, good. Ken, I enjoy getting to know people like right there in the spot, stuff that you don't normally talk about on podcasts. You've got your own podcast, you've got books, you've got well over $1 billion in assets that you're managing. You've got stuff that is online. Your presence is there to where if someone checked you out and looked you up, they know you would be legit. Investor Hell is all about figuring out what went wrong in the past. And so you don't get to over $1 billion in assets that you're managing without making a few mistakes. And so I would love to hear some of the investment sins and some of the redemption stories that are behind it. Do you know the 7 deadly sins?
Those, you bet I know those. Yep.
The 7 investment sins. I try and make a correlation as best I can.
Yeah.
And so times where you had to become humble or get, charity, where you had to become focused more on pure deals, where you had to be more grateful for the deals that you did have, the temperance instead of the gluttony of wanting too much of the pie, waiting patiently for deals or having to do your due diligence or not, being too lazy within the deal. And so I'd like to give you the opportunity to decide which one kind of comes to mind as far as one that kind of made that character defining moment for you in your past, one where either you made a severe mistake that led to some massive loss that you had to learn something in order to become the person that you are today.
Well, I think first of all, for those that maybe don't know, we've actually, my business, this company I've had 22 years. We've actually done over 3 billion. We currently own two, all multifamily. We've done some office, self-storage. We do a lot of ground development, and we've got about 300 employees right now. So all we do full time is look for deals, and we got analysts and acquisition guys, and I have my own property management company. So that's kind of the short version of call it the last 20 plus years. So prior to that, same thing, really just different companies, my own, and then but my current business is MC companies. And then during the pandemic, I actually had a break, and I started putting these videos out and started doing the podcasts and stuff like that. And that seemed to resonate well. And so that's how I actually got online. I probably wouldn't have done it had I not had that up that period of time. But so yes, I've had a fair amount of wins and certainly losses during that period of time. I think when you're younger, so the way I look at, I'm the old guy now. And I look at these syndicators that go through these classes, and they go for a weekend somewhere or a week or whatever. And they're all well-intended, they're all pumped up. They come out of this great, what I consider to be pretty good education, actually. And then what they do is they go raise money. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that if they don't have the team behind them, then, to educate them, and also depending on their ego or whatever it might be, they might be barreling through a deal and not really listening. So I think the biggest issue, it's going to start to show up, it already has started to show up a little bit, is impatience and greed, probably a little bit in there. People, I'm not a big fan of greed, but I understand if don't have anything and you spend money on a weekend and then you implement it, you probably don't see it that way. But the reality is people raised a lot of money in the last 5 years, and especially in my space, and they overpaid, and their business plans were based on something that were supposed to be better than they are today, and they're not. And so that's the stuff that you get. That's where humility comes in, is, I've been burned similarly, in my 20s and 30s, through the years. And so what happens is when you actually lose people's money, and you actually have to have a conversation with them, then you realize, that's when the rubber hits the road. And so you learn from those things. There's all kinds of stop gaps and all kinds of things that you can put in place, so that you can have a company that survives 20 years, as opposed to one that might not survive actually at all.
And so when you were in your 20s, what were those defining moments where, had you not done what you did, you would not be here today?
Yeah, there's a good thing when people have confidence. I love confident people. I do. What happens is, and I was certainly one of those, I had confidence in myself. And so you go out and you do whatever you do, and you have blind spots. You don't realize that you have blind spots, but you have them. You have blind spots, and really that's where the wisdom sits, right? And so if you don't surround yourself with people, mentors, coaches, whatever, that can flush those out for you, then, and you don't listen, then you become part of a victim from your own overconfidence. And so it's interesting, because I actually think that you have to have a certain level of confidence for whatever the venture that you might do. But still to this day, I think that, you don't really learn much selling. You learn by listening, and it's a game of chess. It's a slow moving progression. There's strategy behind it. There's people you listen to, whether it's attorneys or environmental people or property managers or lenders or whatever it might be. Each person is important. And I think when I was young, and unfortunately the school system pretty much teaches you this. In school, if I asked my neighbor, to help me out on something, it was considered cheating. As an entrepreneur, it's called collaboration. So it's very different. And so I think you don't really learn teamwork in school, which is okay. You can learn it. I learned it in sports. I was an athlete in college, but so I think when you start to learn teamwork, the coach and say the quarterback and the running back and the lineman, and they all have different roles, no matter what it is, in basketball, football. It's the same thing in business. And so what happens is you go out, a lot of people go out with this pioneer kind of, or pirate, I should say, kind of thought process, and then they get burned and they don't understand why. And it's because they don't know everything. They just are somebody with a lot of confidence that raised money. That's a far stretch from having a property produce, having it bought correctly, having it, communicating to your investors, returning, and having a high degree of ethics around how the property's run, the transparency, if it's going well, if it's not going well, all that. So I think that's what you're starting to see now. The last 5 years is, and the reason why I told you the YouTube story when I started during the pandemic is, when I first went on there, the reason I had success is because I was just speaking from wisdom and experience. Everybody else is just, they're just online influencers, so they're raising capital. Yeah. It's a very different, it's one thing to be behind a mic, talk about single family and have 1 million followers. But you might not know what the heck you're doing, which is a lot of situations. And so, so the public is confused. This person's, oh, look they have this beautiful car and they're on this boat, and or they're here or there, and then they start to invest, based on all the wrong things, which would be material items, which is also in one of the 7 deadly sins.
Wanting those shiny objects.
Correct.
But just because you have a bunch of shiny objects doesn't mean that you know exactly what you're doing.
Right. And you might, but you might not. And by the way, it's the wrong reason to do it. That's kind of the point.
So you're saying the wrong reason to get into business is for those things. What's the right reason to get into business then? This sort of business, single family, multifamily, mobile parks, RV parks, all that.
So I think the first reason would be to unplug from the W-2 world. That would be number one. So just financial freedom. That would be the first. I would call that chapter one. Chapter one, if you're making whatever your burn rate is, financial freedom, whatever that is. It should be just to replace. A lot of people think a paycheck is control. They believe that. I've got this. I got my 401k. I'm getting all my money invested and all that kind of stuff. Well, if they really dug deeper, they would know better.
Mm-hmm.
They have the least amount of control. There's story after story after story of somebody who's been with the company a long time. Their pensions are gone, or they've been passed over, or whatever it is. You have very, very little control. You have a lot of security in some cases, depending, but only as much as the company itself. The pandemic wiped out a bunch of companies, bunch of employers, and people found themselves in a situation that they didn't have any security. So I think that should be number one. So if it's $5,000 a month or 10 grand a month, whatever it is, that should be the first thing. How do you create financial freedom one step at a time, hitting singles, not home runs, and just try to get to 10,000 or whatever the number is, and then that would be a reoccurring passive income that you don't need other people's money for, by the way. And so that would be probably goal number one, is just to replace your income so that you now have full freedom to build a business, do something else, go travel. Maybe you grow what you've just got grown, whatever it is, but it's a freedom thing. Attend your kids' events, hang out, have dinner at home with your wife and kids, and go on, all that kind of stuff. Build your relationships. That would be the goal. That should be the goal, in my opinion, because this 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hour week stuff, working weekends, is really, really a bad scenario.
Yeah, it sounds like eventually the business will own you instead of you owning the business. So don't want that.
Yeah.
Earlier, you talked about what the market did do in the past and how people did suffer. That's going to happen again, and it's going to happen probably sooner than people think or realize. What is your opinion about the current trends and the current opinion about where it's going to be headed, when it's going to hit, what's going to happen, and what to do about it?
So while this is different this time around than 2008, I went through 2008. I bought a 300 unit apartment project in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is where I live. My business plan was to convert it to condos. So pretty simple. Bought it for 30 million, 100,000 a unit. They sell for about 200. Pretty easy math, 30 to 60 million. That was the model. That was 5, 6, something like that. Put that whole deal together. We're moving along. There's a zillion complexities around it, with the management and the sales and the renovations and all that stuff. But the point was, when 2007 hit, it stopped everything. It literally, you remember at the time, the buyers were people that got cheap loans with hardly any kind of backup. Okay, so we just went through that with more on the commercial side, believe it or not, where people went through and they got really cheap loans. So it's a little different, but kind of the same. And what happened was, in 2008, when that stopped, most of that what happened in the single family arena. So all those single family homes then hit the market, and the supply went up, the values went down, and of course now they were all underwater on their mortgages, and then the rest is all history. So the lenders learned a lot during that time, well, at least on the single family side, and things got a lot better. But then what happened was, in this last run, is the syndicators, a lot of syndicators went out and they raised a bunch of money and did the exact same thing. They had cheap money that made the deals work. They went through some classes or seminars, and the whole basis is to buy something that's going to be worth more later, just like my deal. Exact same scenario. But now what's happened is interest rates have gone up, and they've taken out their business plan. Because their business plan, let's say they bought it at 3%, their exit, I can assure you, was around 3%. They never anticipated that rates would double during their hold time. So rates doubled. That means values are going down, cap rates are going up. And so now we're in the situation where they're cash calling their limited partners, and they're running out of money, and there's all kinds of stuff happening kind of behind the scenes. So a little bit different, and certainly different than what I would call Main Street, because in a lot of cases it's more Wall Street, more on even on the accredited investor side. But we're starting to see the repricing of commercial real estate. And when commercial real estate values, like the office buildings are the easiest to pick on, because they are very vacant. Some of them 30, 40, 50% vacant, some even more. Well, I can assure you that there's no way to pay for your expenses and your debt, and of course not even your investors back on anything like that. So that stuff's starting to trade right now. Those commercial loans that are coming due, I did a video about a month ago called Red October. There's a huge amount that are coming in October that they're actually going to be defaulting. And then that stuff will start to make its way into the banking system. And so it's going to happen a little bit differently and not as apparent. Meanwhile, the single family buyers and owners are holding their flags going, we're fine over here. We're fine. And in some cases they are fine. But, there's, this big meteor hitting the earth right now on commercial, and it's repriced all of it. And so if anybody has any kind of loans that are going to expire, anytime in the next couple of years, they potentially are in big trouble.
You posted that video Red October on YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah. On my channel, Ken McElroy channel. I don't even know how many views it has at the moment, but it's done pretty well. And it's just basically outlines a lot of this.
Where do you get that kind of information? Like, let's say, for example, somebody just comes across this and they're like, you know what, I'm intrigued. These are two good looking guys here, and they're talking about some stuff I like, but I don't know how to profit from it. So I'm gonna watch their videos and and skiddly do my way into figuring out what to do. Well, okay, so I look and see that the default average is rising in the U.S. on the commercial side and on the single family side. What must I do in order to profit from it? What do you think that is? And so that, because I mean, people were millionaires during the Depression, so we got to get on the right side of history if we're going to protect our families and stuff. So I am curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so there's no easy answer, but I'll tell you how I would do it. First of all, there's a progression. There's anxiety, and then denial, and then default and all that stuff. So we're really not at the default stage. So it's too early, in my opinion, to go start buying stuff. What's going to happen is in the next, I think it's 1.5 trillion with a T of commercial loans are maturing between now and the end of next year. That information, as you would imagine, every time you get a mortgage, it's recorded and held by somebody, usually some big public company. And so that mortgage data is, believe it or not, in the circles I'm in, it's pretty transparent. So there's a couple companies. One is called TREP, TREPP, is one that you can go to. But there's all kinds of people, a lot of brokers track mortgages that are, if they know that, like, imagine if you're in the mortgage brokerage business and you know that I have something expiring at the end of December, you're calling me every day. You're trying to get my business to for a refinance or whatever it is. So the loan matures, loan maturities, and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty easy to find. And therefore, it's pretty easy to kind of track. Like, and by the way, I'm putting commercial real estate into one big category, but really we're talking about office buildings, retail, malls, multifamily. There's so many industrial, there's so many things, including self-storage. It's all in that one big category. And that doesn't mean it's all a bad category. That doesn't mean that they're bad investments. What it means that because of the interest rate hikes, the values have gone down, period. You can't argue with that. And then the second piece is when the lender wants their money back, that's when the rubber hits the road. They're going to say, okay, Mark, you owe me 30 million. That's what's on the loan. And I'm going to say, well, the property is only worth 25. Okay. So at that point, I've got a couple choices. The one choice is I write you a $5 million check so that I don't have to file bankruptcy, right? That's one choice. Another one is you raise 5 million from investors, or there's a zillion things to try to keep the deal, right? The problem is that now that lender is now faced with, going from, say, a 3% loan to a 6 or a 7. So now the operator is still in a bad scenario because I'm gonna keep the asset, a $30 million loan, let's say. By the way, they're not going to give me 30. Because they're not going to do 100% financing. So they're probably going to give me something like 20, 21, 22. So that means I would write 5 just to not get filed bankruptcy, but I need 6 or 7 more just to have some more equity. So, by the way, we haven't even discussed the initial investors that got you there. They're gone. So all this is coming due right now.
Well, so it's coming, and the best thing we can do is do our research and find out what's best for us and our families, and focus on how do we capitalize on it? Who do we partner with, JV or collaborate with? Who do we cheat with, shall we say, in order to try and make sure that our bases are covered and that we have that financial freedom back, and we have that security, we have that everything in place before everything goes into the dumper.
Yeah, I always tell everybody, like, you don't want to catch a falling knife. Like, let it hit the floor and then grab it, by the handle and pull it out. Right now, the knife's falling. It's just too early. That's all. It's just too early. Now's the time to start to understand this stuff. Now's the time to start getting deal flow. Now's the time to build your team. Now's the time to build your capital stack and your equity, your property management, and get all that stuff together. Now's the time to start to solve the bank's problem, because the bank's going to have a problem.
Yeah.
That, when they get an asset back, it's the bank's problem.
So is that what you're doing? You're getting your team together, you're sitting back, you're waiting for the knife to fall, and then you're going to grab it by a handle and say, I'm ready to roll. Let's go.
We did that after, we got through 08, 9, 10, fine. And then we ended up buying a tremendous amount of real estate, 8, 9, 10, 11, from basically directly from La Jolla Bank, which was one of the banks that went down. We bought some from Bank of America, some from Wells Fargo. What happens is those banks now go to brokers and they start to list it.
They don't want to sit with the properties. They're not.
Correct. Right. They got to get rid of it because it affects their rating as a bank. Banks aren't supposed to own real estate. So, so it's too early. it's pregame right now, like now's the time to watch, get educated, kind of watch this thing play out. You got a good year and a half. We're not going to have interest rate cuts, in my opinion, that are going to be meaningful, even if you get any at all. They're not just going to be meaningful at all. So, just wait for the next, call it 15 months and get yourself in position.
Get yourself in position, folks.
Yep.
Love it. Okay. I mean, it's very helpful. It sounds to me like you know exactly what you're doing. You're prepping, you're sitting there, you're ready, you're watching, you're waiting, you're working in the sidelines, you're having some fun in the meantime. What do you do for fun, man? What do you do to make yourself feel fulfilled? Other than, obviously providing value for people.
Sure. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. I just got done with a 2-month cross country sprinter van trip. I just went all the way to the East Coast. Well, I went up north to Coeur d'Alene and then made my way across, my wife and I. Super active with my kids. Obviously we're climbing Kilimanjaro again. That's been my third time. And then let's see what else. Play a fair amount of golf. I'm going to the let's see in the next 2 months. I'm going to Europe, and I'm gonna go to the F1 race in Vegas. I'm going to Nashville with I'm in a group called YPO, so I'm going with my YPO group. For a Nashville trip. So I work about 2 days a week.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Are you originally from Washington State? Is that
Seattle? Yeah, Seattle area.
I'm originally from Wenatchee, so I'm not too far out.
Oh yeah.
You ever go to like the Chelan area and
Oh yeah, I used to go to the hydro races out there and Chelan, and yeah, I had friends from Wenatchee, lots of them actually. Yep. I've managed properties in the Tri-Cities and so yeah. And I have a home in Coeur d'Alene, so I go through kind of back on my way back home through that area as well.
we were just in Coeur d'Alene, not even 2 weeks ago, Shelby and I, and we're thinking about trying to get a space up there.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, I'm
Beautiful.
there all of July. I spend my July there.
Oh, well, we just missed you.
Yeah.
I actually had somebody, I told somebody that I was going to be doing this today, and they're like, hey, I want to know what their diet's like.
Yeah.
I know it's a weird question, but what you put into your body, whether who your master is and that sort of thing, and I am curious as to, well, you don't have to answer that. That's a more of a personal question, but what is your diet like these days? Something to keep yourself healthy and fit and feeling young and
Sure.
feeling good and not feeling too bad.
Yeah. No, I'll give you. I'll kind of give you. So first, my wife's super healthy. She's gluten, dairy, and egg free, and so therefore we eat a lot. I eat a lot of stuff she eats. Uh, I'm right now in the middle of a 21-day cleanse. I do 2 of those a year, and I've been with the same naturopath for about 10 years. So the thought behind that is that you need to clear out your organs so that they can heal themselves. So, but yeah, mostly, I'm pretty clean eating and hitting the gym at least 3 to 4 days a week. Probably gonna maybe I think I'm gonna step up my activity to more like 6. But I'm not a fanatic around that. I got a trainer and I need to go, and I'm not super motivated gym guy, but I do work it into my my routine. I definitely meditate. We have a plunge tub and a infrared sauna at our house, and so I do that. We're pretty active. When we just got back off this trip, we had our bikes with us. We were biking every morning somewhere. Not like road bikes, but more like mountain bikes. A little more casual, but still good workout. So yeah, I just try to keep moving.
Keep yourself clean. That's nice. Do you this is kind of an odd question, but I know that a lot of people these days, they enjoy the alcohol, they enjoy the wine, they enjoy the weed, they enjoy the drugs and all this other stuff. What do you try? You try and stay away from all that, or?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We have our, if I drink, I'll do tequila with one ice cube. I try not to do the wine. It's a lot of sugar in wine, especially US wine. So if I do drink wine, I don't drink any wine from the US. But those days are behind me, man. Like, that was my 20s and 30s. And there's really not a great place for that anymore in my life. But I do go out. Don't get me wrong. I do have fun with my friends and all that kind of stuff. And I'll have a couple tequilas, no question, and then Uber home. But it's never. It's not like maybe when I was in college or after college. I guess.
sure, change your ways as you age, getting a little wild
Yeah.
on the health side. So, all right, final question, then I'll let you go because I know that you probably got a busy day, and I know we kind of strayed away from the investment sin side and
Oh,
more.
that's fine. Yeah, this is good.
um, if you had to start all over again, what three things? Like you said, you started in your 20s, right? You started doing real estate and all this other stuff, early 20s, really focused. What would you leave out? What would you not do? Give me like three things that you're like, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, and you cannot do this.
Probably the biggest mistake, biggest mindset I had when I got out of school was that I had to do everything myself, and I was afraid to talk to everybody about it. So, not what I'm saying is I was just doing everything kind of very independently, you know what I mean? And not really sharing or working with anybody. And I think I realized that you actually don't need to know anything if you find the right people it's
Yeah,
quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite, right?
like a Henry Ford sort of thing you're saying there.
It's really true. I'm telling you, just as still today, I go into stuff. I'm in the middle of stuff. I don't even know. All I know is I just need to find the best people in that space. Then I learn a lot. And so that's how I've been able to grow my business, into office buildings and self storages and commercial land development and all that. We're in the billboards. We have a lot of billboards and that kind of stuff. I didn't know this business. I didn't know any of those businesses, but I just found the right people. So I went from thinking I had to know everything, and I was the kid in the back that never raised his hand. That kid. So once I realized that I just need the kids in the front row. I need the attorneys and the CPAs and all the A students. Once I get all of them,
Yeah.
then everything just, and they want to be the smartest, and I want them to be the smartest. So it actually works out really well for me.
So you don't need to know everything is a huge number one.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, but you have to be really open-minded, and you have to let people say not a good idea, a bad idea. And you really have to, accept, collaboration, I think. Um, saying no is hard for a lot of people, whether that's on philanthropy boards or doing business together or investing stuff or whatever it is. That can be difficult for many. I'm super clear on that. I'm I always tell people, don't give me a really slow no. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like
Give me
make a
a
decision. Tell me yes.
yes, 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 yes. And I think, and that's something else. I feel like there's a lot of people that they just move around, and they don't ever make any kinds of meaningful decisions. My experience has been every time I made a decision, it hasn't been always the right one, but a lot of times it is. But I'm going a direction, and I can change course. So I believe that action, just creating, you have to go from inaction to action, and you need to create some momentum, and then you start to see, everybody's smart. I believe that. I believe everyone's got a mind on them, and they've got, common sense. So most people, at least, they've got enough common sense. And I think people can do this. It's, things go off course all the time. Doesn't mean failure, and then the last piece of your question is, failure is when you learn. you actually really don't learn hardly at all when you're until you fail. Like I believe that. And so when something's going off course, or you lose money, or you're in a bad, out of a relationship, or a bad business partner, or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. Or drinking and driving, or whatever, some stupid thing that you might do. And unless you self-reflect and say, okay, what's the lesson here? And you start to peel it back, you're not going to move the needle for yourself at all. You have to really, like, those moments, those down things where you're hitting the wall, whatever that means to you. There are moments to reflect. Most people point outward. They're like, oh, if only that person would have been in the, wouldn't have cut me off, or this or that, or, they never look in ever, or, oh, if only the market would have gone up, or only interest rates, it's the Fed's problem. Those things always are going to happen, always. So when you start to look inward and say, okay, what could I have done differently to fix that, prevent that moving forward, and then just like karma, your life just gets better as you start to just look at things with complete personal responsibility.
Love that. Don't be a victim. That's a great one. Ken, I'm so grateful for your time.
Okay, buddy. Good luck to you.
Thank you. You too. And thank you for watching Investor Hell. Well, that was fun.